Hey, I'm going to get started in just about a minute, so stick around. And if you've got questions, go ahead and type them in the group now so I can answer them. Type them in the comments, and I'll get to answering them as quick as I can. Thanks. Hello there, it's Thursday, and that's the sound and the logo and the time that means it's time for me, Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, to speak live. So here I am in my slowly coming together home studio situation thingamajigger. And actually, there we go. And I'm here to answer your questions about the law pertaining to podcasting. So if you've got one, share it here, put it in the comments, and we will discuss. I actually haven't looked very closely at the Facebook groups much the last day or two, so I don't know what the burning questions in there have been exactly. Maybe if we have time, I'll do a little dive into that while we're here. But I did want to talk a little bit about this this lawsuit that's brewing, and I'm just gonna here's the questions. The son of a hitman lawsuit. Somebody asked me about this the other day, and I had heard about it. In fact, one of my students in my intellectual property class brought it up to my attention. I guess it was last week, and so I thought I would talk about it. So, Son of a Hitman is a show produced by a couple of Woody Harrelson, the actor Woody Harrelson's brothers. And it's a podcast that, as I understand it, is telling the story of how their dad, John Harrelson, was tried and convicted for murder in the 80s, the murder of a judge. And this judge was killed, and he was tried and convicted, in part on the basis of some testimony from a woman who was a lawyer and also is now a psychologist of she's something in the psychology space, and she's an expert witness. She does a fair bit of work apparently as an expert witness testifying in courts. And she did a 90-minute interview with the producers of the podcast without knowing that they were Harrelson's, they were related to John Harrelson, or that they were put up to it, I guess, by Harrelson's brothers, who I guess are set out to, they've set their minds to exonerating Harrelson. Excuse me, I'm looking for a browser window that was open a minute ago. And so anyway, she did this 90-minute interview with them, and she says they only took about 5 minutes of her interview, and they presented her as a quote, very unusual witness. So here's the thing: the podcast is exploring John Harrelson's criminal career. He basically apparently was working as a hitman for hire, and his brothers, Brett and Jordan. This is Woody's brothers. I'm sorry, Brett and Jordan, sons of John, are participating in the production of this podcast, and they're looking at the trial and conviction in the assassination of federal judge John H. Wood, the first federal judge ever to have been killed during the 20th century. That was 79 years into the century. He was the first one to be killed. So this this plaintiff, whose name is Parker, filed a lawsuit back in late February, the 24th, Uh, Chrysantha Parker seems to be her name. She was a prosecution witness in the Wood murder trial. When the podcast was finally released, the host labeled her as a very unusual witness and used that phrase, very unusual witness, as the title to episode 6, which featured her interview. Now, he portrayed her, the host, as the star witness and focused on the fact that the FBI had attempted to use hypnosis to conduct some of the interviews with her, calling it a display of questionable judgment for them to have done that. And apparently, they only used selected portions of her interview to lead the audience to the conclusion that the conviction relied on information obtained through her hypnosis. And then they suggest that Dr. Parker was complicit in a scheme to convict Harrelson with fabricated evidence that should have been inadmissible. She says this is false, that the podcast purposely concealed the fact that none of the interviews that she gave under hypnosis were relied upon by the prosecution, and that it was his defense counsel that elicited the testimony they were discussing in the podcast at that point. So, misrepresenting perhaps the nature of what was being said. So the episode also implies that Dr. Parker was complicit in a scheme to fabricate evidence by stating that the FBI only found her after an extensive search for any witnesses, implying that the FBI had become desperate for evidence. Also false. The host knew that from interviewing the doctor that she had contacted the FBI herself as soon as she learned about the murder of her neighbor, the judge, so she could report the suspicious man whom she had apparently purposely bumped into. He had purposely bumped into her, and she gave the FBI interview the very same day. So, as a whole, this leads the audience to the false conclusion, she argues, that as a young attorney and officer of the court, she was either complicit or actively participated in manufacturing evidence to perpetuate an unfair trial on Charles Harrelson. So, in addition to being an attorney, she also has certifications in healthcare with 20 years of experience as a treating practitioner and clinical researcher and so on. So this kind of portrayal really does her some harm. And assuming that it's false, she has basis for some claims. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens here. I'm reading from a law professor by the name of Eugene Volokh, who writes under the blog title for Reason magazine, for Reason, the website, The Volokh Conspiracy, and he's writing about this today, or on the 24th of February. You can read more about that. But let's talk a little bit about what libel is and whether or not this is the kind of thing that rises to the level of libel. Libel is a false statement made about a person. So it has to be false about a person, of or concerning a particular plaintiff. So we have to be able to tell who we're talking about. False statement of or concerning the plaintiff, published, and obviously the podcast is made public, so we're good to go there, that causes injury or harm to the reputation or standing in the community. That's the general nature of defamation, libel. Now, defamation is the umbrella term for libel and slander. Slander is essentially the spoken word version of this, and libel is the mass media kind of version. Bigger audiences, bigger, using technology, those kinds of things. It's generally libel. So she's suing apparently for libel, arguing that they've hurt her reputation by publishing this false information and creating this false impression. Now, one of the things that we have to be aware of when we talk about a libel case is that in order for it to be libel, it has to be false. And so truth is an absolute defense to claims of libel. So if it's a true statement, then okay. So was she a part of that and whatever? Okay. Was she a very unusual witness? Perhaps. So, but that statement actually sounds not like a statement of fact, but a statement of opinion by the podcast host. Hey, this is a very unusual witness. And in fact, even titling the episodes sounds to me like an expression of opinion about this particular person. Opinion, not fact. Now, unusual is one of those interesting words that I guess you could rely on statistics as evidence of, whether it's common or unusual, that someone with these characteristics or traits or this kind of testimony. I suppose you could make that argument. But it's I think that's an opinion statement. I think that the way they've chosen to present her words may be suspect, but it's going to be interesting to watch. I don't think this is a winning libel case, to be honest with you. Has it been harmful to her reputation? Perhaps. That's if enough people hear it, I suppose. But you know, look, people will draw their conclusions. Now, it's possible that the podcast really did mischaracterize things and steer things in a particular direction. So we'll be watching this case. Spotify is the producer, essentially, of the show, of the podcast. So it'll be the case, I believe. Let me find it again. Let me get my page open. The case is, Parker versus Spotify USA Inc. So they're suing Spotify and presumably all the other parties involved as well as defendants in the case. There are other defenses that will come up. Look, she gave the interview, so they're using her words, and context is a little bit of a subjective thing. So I don't know, if you get in front of a jury, is this going to work? And it's sort of hard to say. So that's libel. Now, does anybody have any questions about that? I'm trying to think what other kinds of, I'm not her lawyer. I'm not a lawyer for either party in this, but it strikes me as an opinion-based defense is a strong one. First Amendment free speech. There's also a principle called the reporter's privilege. When someone is doing an investigation into the workings of the courts, there's a certain privilege to statements made, privilege to repeat or to publish and report on statements that are made in the course of the court proceedings and so on. And in fact, a similar privilege applies to what I'm doing here right now. In the course of describing this lawsuit, I have described her allegations. I've reported on what she claims is the false statement, right? The false information. And so I am publishing those same factual statements, but I'm publishing them in the context of reporting about them. And so I, as a journalist, have a privilege as well called the fair report or fair comment privilege. So I am within my rights to do that. And that's something that we as podcasters should remember is as long as we are reporting on, on a case or a newsworthy item, that reaches pretty far. Is the nature of her testimony from 40 years ago, 1979. So yeah, it's 42 years ago. Is that nature of that testimony still newsworthy? Maybe. I think you could argue that the workings of the courts and injustices in the system here in the United States today are part of a long-standing pattern of abuse, and I don't know, maybe that argument is something to be made. People being convicted, railroaded, and so on. But is her particular testimony still newsworthy? I don't know. Another component of this that comes to mind is because she is a bit of a if she is a public figure, and that remains to be seen. She might be what we call a limited purpose public figure because of her testimony in the suit, because of her choice to be an expert witness in many kinds of cases. And I don't know what other kind of public visibility she's, sort of sought out and made for herself. But if she is a public figure, this is true for public figures and public officials under a lawsuit called New York Times versus Sullivan. There's a ruling that says that public figures have a higher bar when they bring a suit for libel or slander. They have to prove not just that it was false, but that at the time the material was published, the person publishing it knew that it was false or that it was published with reckless disregard for the truth. And I think that's a high bar to make in this kind of a case. So very interesting libel suit. We don't see a lot of cases involving specifically statements made on podcasts. There are a few others cooking. The one between Tulsi Gabbard and Hillary Clinton, I think also originated with some statements made on a podcast, but it's a broader thing than that. So we're watching this case. We'll be talking about it, I'm sure, for months and years ahead. And so I thought that's what I would bring to you today to talk about it. But I see we have a few people in the viewing area right now. And if you have a comment or you'd like to say something, I hope you will drop a note in the comments. Even if it's just to say hello, let me know you're here, because I like to chit chat. I'm a social animal, and would love to do that and participate with you. So, anybody have anything to say? If not, I just want to also let you know, sort of news, is that on Monday this week, I opened the doors to my latest program called Easy Legal for Podcasters. I'm going to actually rotate my mic flag and show you easylegalforpodcasters.com. And this is an online course and resource center for podcasters who want to get their legal work done. They want to do it themselves, but they need a little guidance. They want some advice from someone like me, Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. And, that's sort of my thing, my approach to things. Let me see, I lost my page here. So what I'm going to do is just jump over here and just, whoops, that's not what you need to see. Here we go. I just want to share with you whoops, that's not it either. I don't know what's going on here. Let me see if this does the right job. There we go. I want to say the most important thing that you must do if you're going to be a podcasting professional and have an impact, influence, make money in the field is to get your legal affairs in order. And as I see it, that means you have three choices about how to do that. One is you can just do nothing, keep your amateur status, continue playing small, treating your podcasting as a hobby, dabble, get the same results you're getting. No rewards, no results to speak of. Or you can hire a lawyer and fork over a retainer. It might be $3, $5, $6, even $10,000 to get all your legal affairs in order for your business or your network or whatever you're doing. Or you could enroll in Easy Legal for Podcasters today. Visit easylegalforpodcasters.com and get started doing it yourself using the forms, instruction, and know-how, and the how-to walkthrough examples that I provide in Easy Legal for Podcasters. And yeah, look, I know about those online services, the ones with Zoom and Rocket and Fast in their names. And hey, it sounds attractive, right? Fast, cheap, generic legal services. Well, is that really what you want? You want it handled fast and cheap? If that's how you plan on doing everything in your business, I guess that's great. But I liken this approach to getting a haircut from a vending machine. Now, you can imagine walking down the street, there's this machine, a box with a hole in the bottom that says, hey, haircuts, $1. Insert head here. Well, if your head is exactly the size as average everybody else, then maybe you get a really good haircut. Or you might wind up missing an ear. So are you going to do that? You can stick your head in that hole? If your situation isn't exactly down the middle like every other, all bets are off. And that's how I feel about those online vending machine legal document services. Now, of course, I am a lawyer by profession, so I'm obviously not fond of a machine system that's taking lawyer jobs away. But here I am offering a solution that also takes away from the lawyer's jobs. And the fact of it is, I've seen too many jobs botched by these kinds of online things. And look, when you come to someone like me after a botched job, you're going to pay more to fix it than you would have in the first place to hire someone to do it right for you. So the bottom line is, don't rely on a machine, an algorithm to do this stuff for you. Trouble is, you only ever know if it's right or wrong when something becomes an issue years later, when you have to test the structures and setups in court and, or with tax authorities or regulators or whatever. So Easy Legal for Podcasters is really the only choice that I can see. One last time, here is what you get when you sign up for Easy Legal Podcasters. You get the 4-part Easy Legal framework lessons, your business structure, your team structure, your intellectual property strategy, and your client and customer strategy, plus walkthrough videos of the how-to of all of the different aspects of getting your legal affairs in order. We have checklists and templates and samples and more, and we also are offering Easy Legal conference calls once a month, live conference call with me on a Zoom call where everybody who wants to ask questions or have us go over their documents and their particulars, that's what I'm there for. Plus the expert master classes that we offer from time to time, things like how to grow your podcast audience, how to find sponsors, how to start a network. I'm going to be interviewing an expert on that subject. And as well as you get a free copy of the podcast blog and New Media Producers Legal Survival Guide, my ebook, as part of that. And it's all yours for free for 90 days risk-free. So for just $497, less than about 5% of what you'd likely pay lawyers to set everything up and get it going, you're company structure, trademarks, contracts, and advertising deals. Hey, honestly, this is less than you'd pay someone like me, a lawyer, for less than an hour of my time to lay all this stuff out for you, just to lay out the strategy and figure out what's next. So what are you waiting for? easylegalforpodcasters.com. And remember, we're closing this offer at midnight on Friday night. So check it out. Check it out. All right. I'm going to come back to my camera shot right now and see if anybody has any other questions. Where'd I go here? Here we go. There we go. All right. So, any other questions or comments from anybody here? I would love to chat with you. Who's here? Say hello. Drop a note in the comments and let me know what's going on. I love to know who's here, but there's no way to see unless you say something. So, drop a note in the comments and just say hi. We don't have to talk about law if you don't want to. Hey, we can talk about the weather. We can talk about what's going on in my kitchen. Just finished almost finished the renovation here in the office after we had a water leak that meant I had to tear all the walls out and do the replastering and drywall and repainting and everything else. And I'm liking how it's coming together. I'm liking the look of things. This is just one of several angles I can use. We've got some acoustic treatment still to do and some decorations still to do, but I think we're just about there. So on the other side of this door, however, is the rest of the house. And sure enough, it was the same week that we finished up the... oh, audio shut off? Did it really? Let me see. So, Rob, you're not hearing me at all? If anybody else can hear me, give me a thumbs up or something. That's weird. Because it indicates it's back now. Okay, maybe when I switched over to the slides or something, it went away. Thank you for alerting me. Anyway, so yeah, so as I was saying, the kitchen, we discovered a leak where our dishwasher connects to the water supply, and it's been going. We don't know how long it's been going, but we've got the whole routine. The cabinets, the hardwood floors, the walls. There's mold. We just had the mold inspection after the remediation that happened today. So we get the report on that tomorrow, and then we get to start rebuilding. And it may mean replacing the wood floors in the entire downstairs area of our house. The whole first floor is hardwood, and you're never going to be able to match color with a 20-year-old floor. So it's going to be interesting to see what we can do. And so I don't know how noisy it's going to be around here, or even if I'm going to be able to stay. We may have to move out of the house for a couple of weeks. So that's what I'm up against. Hey, tune in tomorrow, by the way. Oh, that's another message I should give you. Tomorrow, as part of PodFest, I am going to be joining my friend Angel, her last name is blanking, but she's giving a talk about music in podcasts, specifically library music and other myths about music. And she's going to bring me in at the end to help her out with some Q&A stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. It's I think it's 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Is when that happens. So that would be 12:30 Eastern time. And if you're attending PodFest, please do join and hit me with your questions there, if not here. So, Rob, it's good to see you here. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that audio, but thank you for joining in and for letting me know. And we're at the 25-minute mark, I think. So I think I'll say thanks for watching, unless anybody else has any other comments or questions. And I'm going to get out while the getting's good. So I'll see you again. If not sooner, I'll see you next week when this podcast lawyer speaks live at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Have a great day.